that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week number 344 with me, George Harvey, and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. And I want to point out to anybody who's keeping careful track of the numbers of Energy Week episodes that number 343 was recorded last Friday. It was a special.
Yeah, it was a special, right?
With 350 Vermont.
Got any idea when it's going to be shown?
It should be ready to be shown now. I would imagine that it'll be in the schedule.
Hard to keep up with the schedule.
Well, the schedule is produced, I think, on Fridays, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Yeah, look for it. It's a good show.
Yeah, but it won't be on. I don't think it'll be on Channel 10. These specials are usually on Channel 8. Anyway, I have to make my daily, weekly appeal to people to donate money to BBC TV, BrattleboroTV.org. Go and give scads of money. Anything upwards of $1 in denominated in dollars, and that's please not Monopoly money. And when you do that, please put a note a little down below the size of the donation, saying that it's for Energy Week. The donations can be made at BrattleboroTV.org, and there's a support local media, I think is what it's called, on the homepage.
I'm
at
not
the bottom.
sure.
Anyway, every day I get up, go to the internet, and find all the news that I can about what's going on in energy and climate change, and I make up for each piece that I want to preserve for posterity. I put together a 50 or 55 word synopsis and a link to the original article, and I put 10 to 15 of these together and put them up on a blog called geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, and Tom and I do the 20 or 21, 22 that are the most interesting on Thursday mornings.
The best of the blog.
Yeah. So you usually have something to say about this. Why don't you put yourself up?
Well, obviously I read these before the show, and some of them are really worth looking at.
Yeah.
You know, so if I can think of it, I'll try to remember some of the ones. Some of them have videos attached to them.
Yes.
Lots of pictures and stuff like that. So I'll try to mention the better ones or the more interesting ones.
Yep. Should we just start on our way?
I think we ought to get going. Yep.
Okay.
I think,
well, we're starting on Thursday, October 31st, and we'll try to keep the viewers apprised of the dates of these articles so that they can go to the blog.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And you can click on the calendar and find the entry and on that, which narrows things down quite a lot. But anyway,
there's links.
Yeah, there's
links. They usually work.
Our first item is from a publication called Inverse, and there is a picture there.
Yeah, I'll see if I can.
There it is.
There it is. By Jove, I think he's caught you.
I think he has.
That looks like an interesting place. Looks like a wheat field, huh?
It does, sort of, doesn't it? Yeah. Or possibly in the background there that could be canola, I suppose. Anyway.
It's not it's not corn, that's for sure.
It's not corn, yeah.
But it goes to show you what you can do. You can put them all together in one field.
Yeah.
And farmers are finding out they're getting an extra income out of this.
Yes.
We'll talk about that later.
Yes. What do you have for a title?
Renewable energy could save us trillions of dollars in health costs. We've talked about this before.
We have. If you're worried about getting, quote, windmill cancer, end quote, a term that was, I think, invented by a denizen of Washington, D.C., I
hadn't heard it before I read this article. Yeah, what does it mean? Windmills give you cancer?
Donald Trump said windmills. He said that some say windmills cause cancer. If you're getting worried about windmill cancer, we have some good news for you. According to a new study published this week in the journal environmental research letters, installing more renewable energy could save the U.S. trillions of dollars in health costs.
Well, I'm going to mention something because the article talks a lot about coal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all fossil fuels generate atmospheric problems, but coal does generate the worst. And what they mention in the articles: nitrogen oxides, mercury, sulfur dioxide, particulates, and then they say all of these are very toxic.
Yeah, and you don't want these in your backyard.
But you got them in your backyard. You got them there now.
You sure do.
So hopefully, with more renewables, there'll be less and less of this
We've
stuff.
said before,
and some better health for
Yep.
people.
We've said before, if you catch a record-sized trout
Yeah.
in Lake Champlain,
Can't eat it.
don't eat it.
Yeah,
Because
that's a shame.
it's polluted by decades of mercury accumulating in Lake Champlain. The other thing is that I've mentioned this many times. The American Lung Association in California did a study of Vermont pollution and came to the conclusion that burning fossil fuels in our transportation system only, which is less than 50% of our fossil fuel use, costs people in the state $330 million a year in health costs, which comes to $480 per person, which means that if you extrapolate that up from the less than 50% to include all of it, it would be reasonable to think that our health costs for burning fossil fuels amount to about...
They're significant.
Yeah, it's about $1,000 per person, and so family of 5, it's $5,000, and most of that is covered by insurance and taxes. But guess what? We pay insurance and taxes. That's where they get their money. So yeah, this is a real thing. Any more?
Well, I guess I was just going to mention that I can think of a place right nearby New Hampshire where there's a little parking area next to a brook.
Yeah.
Big sign: "Don't eat fish from this river."
Yes. Yeah. There's a river going through Pownell, Vermont, where and
Same thing, huh?
do not eat any kind of fish in any quantity from that river.
Wow.
Okay, our next item is from Renews.
It is that Mayflower to deliver Massachusetts offshore wind farm. This is not about ships.
The state of Massachusetts has chosen Mayflower Wind to develop an 804 megawatt offshore wind farm.
That's significant.
804 megawatts is quite a lot.
That's significant.
Following bid submissions filed in August, the project, located more than 20 miles south of Nantucket, which means it's going to be out of sight, completely out of sight from Nantucket, is expected to start operations in 2025, according to the developer. I should say, actually, it probably isn't going to be completely out of sight for a person who's standing on a hill, or if you hoist yourself up a flagpole or something like that, you might be able to see the lights of those turbines at night.
like the old New York story about the woman calls up the police and says, "There's a man walking around naked here." And the cop comes up to investigate, and he says, "I don't see the man." She says, "Here it is. He's up on the 14th floor. Use my binoculars."
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
we're done with that?
Well, we got a little takeaway here.
Oh, we do.
The
Okay.
wind farm will enable a $3.7 billion electricity rate reduction over the term of the contract.
How much?
$3.7 billion.
Wow.
That's what it says, over the term of the contract, which is like 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Mayflower has provided the same competitive pricing to Connecticut.
Yes.
So it's going to start happening in the East Coast.
Tom, I've forgotten. Do they have an actual cost in the article?
I
don't
don't
think so.
think they did, because I probably would have saved
Yeah.
it.
I don't remember it.
So
But-
for what it's worth, Mayflower is a joint venture between Shell Oil and the Portuguese utility EDP Renewables.
The Portuguese and an oil company are
Yeah.
coming to save us. Okay. Well,
Stranger things have happened.
in Massachusetts, there's a lot of people of Portuguese ancestry.
Oh yeah, that's
There's
correct.
A huge number of people.
In Rhode Island too.
In the area where I used to live, you would find it as easy to get Portuguese sausage on a pizza
Yeah.
as pepperoni.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a picture of This is
Yeah,
Greenland.
we do have a picture. And
What a lovely place.
It's Greenland, yeah.
Yeah.
It's ice belt.
This is from CNN.
Rising sea levels threaten hundreds of millions, and it's much worse than we thought.
Yeah, this is not good. Hundreds of millions of people worldwide, nearly 3 times the number previously thought, are at risk of losing their homes as entire cities sink under rising seas over the next 3 decades. This is not out to the end of the century. This is just out to 2050. A paper published in the journal Nature Communications says 3 decades means that the kids who are in high school now are going to be less than 50 years old when these cities are abandoned.
It's going to be affecting them.
This is not good.
No, not at all. There's a nice 3-minute video in this article.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing sea levels rising. You know, it's predicting that. It's good video.
Yep.
There's also some maps of flood threat projections.
Yes.
They mentioned Kolkata, southern Vietnam, London in 2050, and they show side by side old and new data sets, so you can see what they project is going to happen to the flood levels.
There's projections that basically the entire Mekong Delta will be underwater.
Pretty much all of Bangladesh is going to be underwater.
Yeah. This is and Bangladesh.
This nothing is.
Bangladesh has a significant population. I mean, I don't think
a lot of people. Yeah.
I don't think it's as big as 200 million people, but it has a.
It's big. It's significant.
Okay, we're up to Friday, November 1st, with an article from BBC.
Now, this is an interesting article.
It is. This is fun.
It's about California fires.
Which is sad, but this is still fun.
Goats help save Ronald Reagan Presidential Library.
You heard that right, folks. A hungry herd of 500 goats helped save the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library from California wildfires. In May, the library hired the goats to clear flammable scrub surrounding the complex as a preventative measure. The goats ate the brush, creating a fire break.
There's a nice image here of a goat grazing here. This is an interesting article. It's kind of fun.
I was tempted to put
the goats were hired from a local company called 805 Goats. And they included Vincent Van Gogh, Selena Gomez, and Goatsart. And the volunteers have been scrambling to evacuate domestic and farm animals. They're trying to get them out of there before the fires. Carrying away in trailers and stuff like that.
Yep.
And the shelters have also had to evacuate animals. So this is nothing to sneeze at.
This is not, we'll be speaking about California fires more.
Well, it's very timely. It's very newsworthy.
It is.
And we got a picture here coming up.
We do indeed. This is a picture of an oil spill, and I have
the show. We were kind of discussing whether this was a sanitized picture or not.
I don't think they actually did any
they just selected
photoshopping,
pictures,
but I think they picked a part of the. I mean, you can see the from the caption that this is TC Energy image, and I think they may have picked a part of the spill that makes it appear to be less bad than it actually is.
You really can't see the east end of that thing there.
No.
How far it goes.
No. We're still on November 1st, and go ahead, Tom.
There's a 1-minute video on this.
Yep.
And it's President Trump talking about this incredible pipeline. His words.
Yes, it is kind of incredible in some ways. Okay, what do you have for a title?
Keystone Pipeline leaks 383,000 gallons of oil in North Dakota.
Part of the Keystone 1 pipeline in North Dakota, I want to point out this is not Keystone XL, this is Keystone.
This is a new Keystone.
Yeah, was shut down after a leak of about 9,120 barrels, which is 383,040 gallons of oil, was discovered. TC Energy Company, the company that's responsible for that image that we were just looking at, said in a statement, a drop in pressure was detected and the pipeline was immediately shut down.
Well,
but
let's hope so.
Does that look like that might have 383,000 gallons? 383,000 gallons.
I can't visualize with that.
Well, you know, it's not too hard. 350,000 gallons would be 500 gallon, 5,000 gallon tank trucks.
70 tank trucks.
70 tank
Wow.
trucks. So this is more than 70 tank trucks. And I got to tell you, that doesn't look like it's a contamination from 70 tank trucks.
I don't think so.
Now, you know, another thing too, this is 383,040 gallons. And my recollection, and I could be off here, but not by an order of magnitude. My recollection is that 1 gallon of oil is sufficient to pollute 5,000 gallons of water. So
I don't recall ever hearing
this
that
is
statistic. That's a scary
a
statistic.
lot of oil is terrible stuff. It
Yeah.
really is. It's awful. It's bad for health. I had a friend who, when I was young, and I was young, he was old, but we were friends, you know, and he would tell me things about chemistry because he was a chemist. In fact, he had a doctorate in pharmacology, and he was considered one of the best toxicologists in the country. And he said the molecules, the hydrocarbon molecules in petrochemicals are absolutely horrible for human health, and they cause a lot of cancer.
Which I kind of think been swept under the rug. hasn't it?
Well, I think that it was never allowed to really show it.
Yeah.
Be shown in you know, but nevertheless, that was his
Well,
opinion.
for what it's worth, the Keystone Pipeline system
Yeah,
stretches more than 2,600 miles.
right.
From Alberta in Canada, east into Manitoba, and then south to Texas. Covers a lot of ground. It
Covers a lot of ground.
moves a lot of oil.
From Manitoba to Texas, that is basically almost from Canada to Mexico.
Pretty well.
it's
It is
a-
from Canada to Mexico.
It's
really.
a long ways.
It's going to the Texas shore, so that goes
Yeah,
to the middle
that's
of
right.
Texas.
Was built so they could take this crude oil and move it to refineries
It's from the tar sands.
from which it could go into tankers and be
yeah.
taken out to sea.
Well, this one's interesting too.
What?
The next one coming up.
Yeah.
Coal power is bleeding cold hard cash.
Yes,
And
indeed.
there's a subtitle to it. Thank you, Captain Obvious.
This is from Clean Technica. Carbon Tracker, which is an organization in the EU, looked at the viability of the EU coal fleet as reported in a report it titled Apocalypse Now. It says 79% of the EU's coal power plants are losing money. Coal Tracker concludes that without significant subsidies, there will be no hard coal and no lignite powder in the EU by 2030.
This is about the EU.
Yeah.
But the U.S. coal industry is on death watch.
Absolutely.
That's what the article says. Coal power plants are falling like dominoes.
Yeah, and coal
Coal
mining.
is simply unable to compete in today's energy
Yeah,
market.
and the mining industry, you know, there used to
They're
be
trying to save it, but they can't.
there used to be a Dow Jones coal index. 10, 11 years
Yeah.
ago, it hit its high at 735. The last I looked, it was about 35. And,
Wow.
and every single company I've seen on that index
Is in bankruptcy.
has gone bankrupt, has gone out of business. There, in 2008, it had 8 or 10 or 12 companies. The last several times I've looked, which is over the last 2 or 3 years, there's only been one company on the index.
And it's not.
This is not healthy. Well, we've got Murray Energy, which we talked about last
They're
week.
going bankrupt.
Everybody's going bankrupt. Everybody in the coal industry, and it is not because of Barack Obama. It's been
No, it's the market.
it's the market, and there's no way that Donald Trump has been able to hold back the market. We
He
lost.
can call it beautiful all he wants to. Clean coal, he can do that all he
He
wants to.
can call it
It's-
beautiful. That doesn't mean anybody's going to invest
He can't deal with
in it.
economics.
Yes, that's right.
It's out of his control.
Okay, we're up to Saturday, November
Man, we
2nd.
got another picture coming up.
We do
here.
indeed.
This is kind of interesting. I'll try
Oh,
to pull it
this is an interesting picture.
And if you look there in the picture down the lower right, you'll see some vehicles. Give you some idea how big this thing is.
Those are vehicles? I thought they were colored grains of rice.
They're cars, pickup trucks.
Yeah, they're there.
I can't even see any people. Are too small to register in this picture, I think.
I think they are, yeah. I don't see any. Okay.
Well, in any case, the headline says that wind powers Hirama crane vessels. And there you're looking at some Hirama crane vessels.
I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced.
Well.
This is This is
It's German or something. Or
it's Dutch.
Dutch.
And Dutch is difficult for me to pronounce because nothing seems. I think it's probably something like Herema or something like that. But you know, I know a couple of sentences in Dutch.
And you can't pronounce. You can't
Well,
say
you know,
them.
it's interesting because it's a way of comparing English, German, and Dutch.
Yeah.
In German, if a person walks up to the fruit seller's place and says, "Was kosten die Apfeln?" that means, "What do the apples cost?"
I can figure that one out.
Was kosten die Apfeln? What do the apples cost? What's halfway between? German. I mean Dutch,
Yeah.
in which it is wat kosten de appels? And if somebody had walked up to a New York fruit seller and said that, the fruit seller would say, "Okay, we've got a person here who hasn't really learned English very well," when they haven't spoken a word of English. Okay, sorry about that. Herema is involved in a project in the Dutch port of Rotterdam to use electricity generated by wind turbines in place of diesel generators for the power needs of moored crane vessels. And
Yeah, those vessels aren't always sitting in that spot.
Yeah.
Okay,
They move them around and
regularly
moor them.
for maintenance or to prepare for projects at sea.
This is bizarre as far as I'm
So
concerned.
basically, what we're looking at is that little structure in the front with the gangplanks on it is
Moved ar-
permanent.
yeah.
And the things
the
in the
mooring.
back move.
Yeah. And it says the aim of the project is to establish the feasibility of supplying shore-based clean electricity to large seagoing vessels. That big vessel is going to move around, and I think we're getting to a point here where we're literally talking about a big, long extension cord.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a takeaway here. Let's see. The vessels need energy for onboard facilities.
Yeah.
You know, while they're in.
Those cranes are going to use a lot of electricity.
Well, this matches what we talked about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
With the GE turbine.
Yes.
Which is also in Rotterdam, and
Yes.
it's feeding an adjacent
Yes, that's
shipyard.
right. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, if you look in the background on this photograph, you can see that there's some kind of, I don't know whether it's a canal or a highway or something, but along it you can actually see little bitty wind wind turbines.
Turbines.
That looks like
some
little
kind
bitty
of
wind
waterway.
turbines. Yeah.
Definitely. It's probably a canal.
It looks like it. And
Well, it's Rotterdam.
It's Rotterdam.
Yeah, it's all water anyhow.
yeah.
Yeah, it was the Haliad X prototype that we talked about, the 12 megawatt.
Yeah, that's right.
turbine.
And every
Big
time
turbine.
I read anything about Rotterdam, I think about a joke I heard when I was in about 4th grade, in which there was a little boy who said, "Daddy, is Rotterdam a bad word?"
Well, let's move along here.
I'm not going to tell the joke, but it's not because it's evil in some way, but
It's just
because
such a bad joke.
it isn't funny. Okay.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Penn
Let's do
State
that.
researchers say a 10-minute EV recharge is possible with new battery technology.
This I find fascinating.
This blows the mind.
It does. This is from Clean Technica.
It's almost as fast as you can fill a gas tank.
That's right. Researchers from Penn State claim they found a way to recharge an EV in 10 minutes and are targeting 5-minute recharging rates in the near future. This is based on a trick, which is to heat the battery and then cool it off.
Who'd have thunk?
I mean, and then in reading this article, I found Tesla's actually doing that already.
Yeah.
They just aren't heating it as hot as these guys
that's
made.
hot. Well, from the article, of all the complaints about electric cars,
Yeah.
the one you hear the most is that you can't recharge one in the same time it takes to fill a tank of conventional oil.
Yeah.
Of course, most people who own electric cars don't do that.
Yeah.
They charge them at night at home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is, a good reason for buying an electric car.
Yeah, that's right.
So some people think cars that run on hydrogen are a better solution, and that's something people are looking at too.
I have thought, it would be fun to have a car built, and this would have to be something like one of those 4.2 cars, smart cars.
Yeah.
But have a trailer and have the battery in the trailer.
Uh-huh.
And give it a battery that's big enough, because I think this would be possible to do, to take one of these lightweight electric cars and give it a trailer with a battery that is big enough to allow it to drive, for example,
500-600 miles.
I would bet you could go to Chicago with one of these things.
If the
8 or
trailer's
900
big enough,
dollars.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But, you know, all that would do is create a headline. I don't think anybody would want to drive it regularly. Okay, that was from Clean Technica. Our next one is from E&E News, and we have
Another
kind of an
picture coming up here.
interesting picture here, because it looks like an ordinary wind farm, but it is in...
If you look carefully,
Yeah,
there's ice there.
is there?
In the
Okay,
back.
yeah. But that is an ice-hardened wind farm, and it's the only one in the world.
As of now.
As of now, yes. And we're still, by the way, on November 2nd. So,
Well, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
We're talking about Great Lakes offshore wind.
right.
Is it a possibility or a pipe dream? And one of the biggest problems with offshore wind in the Great Lakes is ice.
Ice. And, well, okay. As I think I said this is from E&E News, but if I didn't, I've already
did.
said it. The end of a regulatory odyssey to get approval for what would be the first U.S. freshwater offshore wind farm is now within sight for developers. Final approval is needed from the Ohio Power Siting Board for the 22.7 megawatt icebreaker project.
This is red tape, isn't it?
Yeah, about 8 miles from downtown Cleveland in Lake Erie. Now, the wind farm in the picture is in Finland, and they built that wind farm because they had to worry about ice. And
Well, Finland's a cold country.
it's a cold country. I think that is seawater. I might be mistaken. There's a lot of lakes up there, but
Well, I think it's seawater. too.
probably seawater, which is a slightly different proposition from lake water. Nevertheless, the thing off the coast of Ohio, off the coast of Cleveland, is going to be in the lake, and when ice moves, it
Can move a
oh.
lot.
I was at Kent School in Kent, Connecticut, in the early 1960s. I think it might have been 1960 that this happened. The Housatonic River had about 2 feet of ice on it, and it broke up in that condition.
Oh, boy.
And,
Wow.
yeah, and the dormitory that I was in was probably 50 feet from the water, but it was about 15 feet higher. And the ice jumbled up and made an ice dam there, and we had a flash flood which rose, I think, probably 15 feet over the roads along the river.
Oh, boy.
In a course of about a minute or two. And it was quite an exciting thing. And you know, this ice was just rumbling, and it was very impressive. As the water rose, a big piece of ice that might have been 100 yards long moved over the shore and hit a series of trees that were about 2.5 feet thick, and it just knocked them down one after another.
A little bit of a lesson in water pressure.
Well, yeah, and I've seen other little lessons in water pressure too. This is not something that you want to fool around with, and the ice on Lake Erie is not going to move around like that, but it will move around.
It will move around. That's exactly what they're talking about.
And-
It's ice flows floating around
Yep.
and trying to knock these towers down.
The ice
And
flows.
what can we do to prevent
Those ice flows are very careful when they make plans to do that too.
it? And they not only hit the towers, but they hit the substructure under
Yes.
the water. And
Yeah.
so they're looking at what the Finns have done here, because there's a movement to put wind up in the Great Lakes.
Yes,
Michigan is talking about it, and
yes,
Ohio's obviously talking about
Yes.
it. And I would imagine the other states are looking
certainly
at it
I
too.
would expect Illinois and Indiana to think about it.
Minnesota.
I mean, the southern Lake Michigan doesn't always ice over.
No, I guess it doesn't, does it? That's
It
Chicago,
used to.
isn't
When
it?
I was a
Yeah.
kid, it did, but it doesn't anymore. Okay, we're up to Sunday, November 3rd. We have
We
an
are.
article from Arkansas Online. I'm not sure why.
It's not about Arkansas. That's for
No, this is not about Arkansas, but it's an interesting article, and the picture that was with this article, which I was also tempted to put in, was a picture of a cranberry bog about 5 miles from where I used to live. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it says cranberry farmers see solar promise.
Falling cranberry prices and ongoing trade wars, which are supposed to put America first and somehow don't include farmers, I'm sorry, that's not a quote from the article, have made American cranberry industry, have the American cranberry industry eyeing a possible new savior, solar power. Some of the cranberry farmers in Massachusetts, the nation's second largest grower after Wisconsin, propose to install solar PVs above the bogs they harvest each fall.
I didn't know that cranberries was hurting, for one thing, and I didn't know that Wisconsin grew more cranberries than Massachusetts.
You know, when you go down to Carver, Massachusetts,
You
where
see
that,
cranberry bogs
where that
all over the
picture
place.
was taken, there's cranberry bogs all over the place. And they're kind of fun. Much of the year they're purple.
Oh, are they? Oh,
They
yeah?
just have big purple fields.
Well, the basic idea is to build solar arrays high enough off the ground in more spread out clusters to allow for crops to be safely grown underneath. We've talked about that
Yeah.
on the show.
I-
It's a good idea.
I thought this was just one more good example of crops being grown under solar panels. Mm-hmm. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we got a picture coming up
Another
here.
crop, but this one is
Different kind of crop.
different kind of crop. And this is a picture from Hong Kong, as I recall.
It is that. And
All
it
right,
says
this is-
Hong Kong oysters.
Yep.
Served up as a natural defense against flooding caused by climate exchange.
Climate change.
Climate change, sorry.
Not
Climate
exchange.
exchange.
This is from Yahoo Singapore News. Environmentalists believe oysters could play a key role in protecting Hong Kong's coastline from the effects of climate change, including the rise of sea levels and increasing damaging floods brought about by extreme storms.
Well, what you're looking at, I'm going to bring the picture up. What you're looking at is called an oyster reef.
Yes.
Okay, and it's neat rows of clustered oysters, and they're one of the solutions to climate change.
Right.
And the reason why they're a solution is the reefs, which can rise up to 10 feet. Okay, so they can be. They're a first barrier to slow storm surges.
Right.
Okay, and minimize the damage to coastal communities.
Right.
So by these things just happening, if you can look in the picture there, there's a lot of oysters there. He looks pretty happy.
He looks happy.
And they don't even mention the fact that oysters sequester carbon in their shells.
Yes, that's absolutely
They
true.
didn't even mention it.
No.
No, they created a natural seawall,
Right.
increasing the friction between waves and the ocean floor.
Yeah, in other words, the waves coming in are reduced. The height of the waves
Exactly.
are reduced.
Yeah.
So, you know, and if you reduce the height of the waves, that means that, you know, seawalls that might have been topped by high waves will no longer be topped, even though the average sea level is the same.
I'm looking at that picture there. I'm going to put it up again.
Okay.
Why are there spikes behind him?
I don't know.
I think that might be fence posts. And,
It might be.
and the oysters are growing on the fence posts?
On the other hand, maybe those are radio masts, so the oysters can communicate with home. Oysters don't need
Yeah,
tall
let's
radio
see,
masts.
oh, there we go. I'm going to
Okay.
put you up there.
So our next item is from Clean Technica.
UK halts all fracking operations in the country. This is kind of big.
Yeah, well, there weren't that many fracking operations.
Well,
in
they
the
were
UK.
working on it.
They were working on it, and the natural
they
gas
dropped the
industry.
whole idea.
Absolutely.
As
and
you're going to tell us.
There were a lot of people who were extremely upset. There was a lot of articles that were coming up in the news. People protests, all kinds of things. The UK government issued an order halting all fracking operations in the country, effective immediately. Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland already had measures against fracking. So the only thing left
was England itself.
and Cornwall, of course, which
is part of England.
No, any Cornishman will tell
They
you
will
it
tell
is
you it's
not
not.
part of England. Okay, some of
That's
them.
where the pirates of Penzance came
Yes, that's right. And I think there are probably a few Cornishmen who will tell you that Cornwall actually is part of England, but they do it in whispered tones. UK government ministers also warned shale gas companies that it will not support future fracking projects.
from. Well, the takeaway here that just goes along with that. The announcement is a blow to companies that had hopes of profiting from the fossil fuel industry. Okay, the halt to fracking was ordered after a report from the Oil and Gas Authority warned it was not possible to rule out unacceptable consequences for those living near fracking sites
Yeah, along with a
Okay.
few other unacceptable consequences.
or predict That's the other one that
Yeah.
I'm just going to mention. Predict the magnitude of earthquakes that fracking might trigger.
Next week, we will have something about Chesapeake Resources, which
Okay.
is the biggest fracker in the United States, as I understand it, and they're going broke.
Are they going, anything to do with earthquakes?
No, it's just it's fracking is too expensive.
There is a connection, but it's tenuous. I mean, there are earthquakes happening in fracking areas that don't get earthquakes.
Well, one of the things that we've seen is historically, the state of Oklahoma has had usually about one earthquake that could be felt every 10 months or so. And that has, because of fracking, gone to about 2 earthquakes a day.
That's kind of what I was referring to. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
We're up to
You can't really draw a direct connection, but it certainly looks very likely.
There have been scientists who have said there is a connection here. Okay. We are up to Monday, November 4th,
Oh,
with
yeah,
an
we
item
got
from
another
Clean
picture here.
Technica. And this is just another airplane.
Another electric airplane.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
I clicked it twice.
Yep. Okay.
Interesting looking plane.
This is a Skylax Airplane.
Electric aviation company Skylax forms a joint venture with a German regional airline.
Skylax GmbH, based in Munich, has entered into a joint venture with East Frisian FLN airline for electric aircraft. The idea is to replace the airline's current fleet of gas-powered BN2 Norman Britain airliners, Islanders, with the all-electric Skylax E10.
That's the name of the airplane.
Those Norman Britain Islanders are old. I think they date to the 1960s.
I don't know.
But this is a nice picture of it. Why don't you put the picture back up? That's a nice commuter type airplane that will take, because
they got 2 models, 6 passengers and 10 passengers.
yeah, and Frisia has a whole bunch of populated islands, and of course.
That's just what this is saying.
Yeah.
The airline provides service between Germany
Yeah.
and several nearby North Sea islands.
Yes.
That's exactly what they're doing. It's an air taxi.
It's an air taxi, and
With the existing battery technology, it can cover 200 miles emission and noise free. So it's a short takeoff.
Yeah.
It's a short trip.
Short trip. This is similar to what happened with that, what was the name of the air company? Harbor Air.
Harbor Air that we talked about last week.
We've talked about, which was going to electric seaplanes. These are just electric
Land
planes.
planes.
But it's the same
idea.
kind of thing.
taxis.
Wherever you have short trip air transportation, you get into a situation where there's a great deal of sense in going by electric.
They're not likely to be running transatlantic electric planes soon.
No, I would say not.
But for this kind of service, this is perfect.
Yep, I think that what they will have 10 or 15 years from now, maybe even sooner, is a situation where the big aircraft that go transatlantic will be powered by biofuels.
Or hydrogen.
I don't know, could you really carry enough hydrogen to?
I don't know.
I mean, you'd need really big tanks.
Knows the answer to that
but
one.
you could carry biodiesel.
Oh, sure.
And
absolutely.
the aviation fuel is not lighter than gasoline, it's heavier.
It's kerosene.
It's kerosene. So I think you could get to that kind of thing. Okay, do you have more on this?
I mentioned it already.
Okay.
So let's move on.
Our next item is from PV Buzz Media.
U.S. renewable energy generating capacity to grow by 47 gigawatts, according to FERC.
According to a review of by the Sunday campaign of data just released by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, we are to see net decreases in generating capacities of fossil fuels and nuclear in the next 3 years. Renewables are expected to grow by 47 gigawatts, however. Now,
that's significant.
What we're talking about here is an overall very slight reduction in fossil fuels because generation from oil and coal will decline significantly, and that decline is not entirely offset by increases in natural gas.
That's kind of what they say here. I'll read it. No new coal capacity, net reduction in fossil fuels, significant decline for nuclear power, plus new wind and solar capacity more than double that of natural gas.
Yeah.
These are all in the pipeline already.
Yep.
While net new natural gas generating capacity is projected to increase, that is more than offset by a drop in coal's net generating capacity
Right.
and a decline in that of oil.
Yes. Okay, enough on that?
Enough on that one. Yeah,
Okay.
let's move on. We got a.
This is
I
from
won't
the
say It's a
BBC.
nice picture. It's a
It's a
kind of
dramatic
scary
picture.
California fires. According to Trump, he threatens to pull federal aid. Huh?
President Trump here is being
What's going on here?
is being investigated for impeachment because he threatened to withhold military aid to the Ukraine, and now President Donald Trump has threatened to cut federal funding for wildfires sweeping California in a Twitter spat with the state's governor. Nearly 100,000 acres have been destroyed by wildfires in recent weeks, and thousands have been forced from their homes.
Trump blamed Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, saying he had done a terrible job of forest management.
Except that most of the forests in California are managed
on
by the federal
government
government.
land.
So it's Trump's problem, not Newsom's problem. And furthermore, of the fires that are going on now, as I understand it, only one of them is actually in a forest. The rest of them are not. So
Not forests.
They're wildfires that are out in the countryside. They're
So it's grass fires.
It's grass. It's
Yeah.
people's lawns. It's whatever. It's the
Shrubs.
asphalt on the highways. It's just complete.
Chevrolet Corvairs.
There you go. It's a sad thing when people lose their Corvairs. But this to me, this is like Trump saying, by the way, everybody, I just want you to know, in case you object to my trying to push people around with threats, here's a good example for you. If Hillary Clinton had become president and done this, the Republicans would be crying impeachment in the streets.
I think so.
As a Republican, I think I can speak for them, at least to that extent. Although I have said Donald Trump hates me and calls me pond scum because I am a never Trumper. Okay.
Let's move on.
All right,
Tuesday, November 5th.
Thank you so much. This is from Clean Technica.
Southern Florida, among spots at greater risk due to sea level rise, finds new machine learning study. This is kind of scary.
We have a very high confidence that we will see 8 to 12 inches of sea level rise by 2050. But elevations along the coast are not really well understood, a study shows. And some places, such as southern Florida, are facing problems.
They showed some pictures of it. It's kind of scary.
In 30 years, we could lose, of the southernmost tip of Florida, we could lose half of it.
The west-facing half
Yeah, the
is going to be
west-facing half.
gone. And
Yeah.
the east-facing half is probably not going to be very usable.
I don't know.
That's where the Trump Hotel is, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Donald Trump specializes in shorefront properties in Florida.
Uh-huh.
Somehow, I think there may be a problem there.
Yeah, that's his problem, not mine.
Okay, well, it's some other
Well,
people's
let's-
problem too.
What's going on here is, of course, sea level rise is caused by global warming.
Yes,
Okay? First, the additional heat melts the land ice.
yes,
Then the water is warmer, so it expands a bit.
yes,
Okay? The combination means as the world warms over the next few years, sea level rise will accelerate.
yes.
And they've been talking about New York, and this article says it doesn't look so bad for New York
Not yet.
yet. Southern Florida and the Keys do.
Yes,
7 countries in Southeast Asia look worse.
yes.
And Bangladesh will almost completely disappear.
Another thing that is threatened is the whole Gulf Coast, and the conservative
Gulf Coast,
Yeah,
yeah.
the conservative Republican government of Louisiana, and I've said this before, has warned all the people in Cameron Parish, which of all the counties in the United States had the highest percentage of pro-Trump voters. They have
we
been
mentioned
told
that on the show.
you're going to have to move
Yeah.
because of a combination of land subsidence, because the oil companies are pumping the oil out from under you, and sea level rise. And this is
Well,
the
these people-
harsh reality that, yeah.
Over the last 20 years, these people have been continuously moving further
Yeah.
inland. And now they've reached a point where there is no more inland to go to.
And people along the coast in Miami, people with the seafront properties have started moving to Little Haiti because it's 7 feet higher.
Yeah. And
Well,
what about the little Haitians? They don't care much
they
about
moved
them.
to Detroit. You know, this is not a good situation. Okay, are we done with that?
Yeah, we got a nice picture coming
We
up.
do. This is a, whoops, sorry. This is a picture that we have had before. I'm pretty sure. I know that we've had
Well,
several
if we
pictures.
haven't, that's a Tesla battery.
Yeah, we've had
Or
pictures
a
of this
bunch of them.
particular of this particular installation. That's the battery that Elon Musk said, I can put it up in 100 days or you get it for free.
The Hornsdale Wind Farm in
And this is the Hornsdale Wind Farm in the background,
Australia.
and the Hornsdale Power Reserve in the foreground. And okay, this is from Renew Economy.
South Australia's stunning renewable energy transition and what comes next.
South Australia dumped coal and sources more than half of its generation from wind and solar. It is now a net exporter rather than importer of electricity. It plans to have net 100% renewable energy in a decade and a multiple of that in the future.
This is interesting. This is really interesting.
Yeah, and this is a government which is basically, what the Australians call liberal and what Americans would call conservative Republican.
Well, the government has a vision to tap into cheap wind and solar.
Yes.
And the possibilities of using green hydrogen and exporting cheap power in the form of electricity over transmission links and via transportable fuels such as hydrogen or ammonia.
Yep.
And they have the potential to do it.
Yes, they do. It's transforming their entire situation. And I have to say that I think that Elon Musk did this, and he did it on purpose.
The picture.
Not just the picture, but he knew that if he put that thing in, it would cause an energy transition in South Australia that everybody else would look at. And when the conservative government took over, it was after the outgoing Labor government.
They were going to dump it, weren't they?
They were going, well, the Labor government had said we're going to have a virtual power plant with 50,000 customers.
Yeah.
And the conservative government going in said, no, we're not. And then when they got the numbers from this thing and a few other things, they said, yes, we are.
It's going to be bigger, though.
Yeah, it's going to be bigger. Okay, we are up to Wednesday, November 6th, and we have an article here from Green Energy Times.
I wonder who wrote it. Trouble ahead for natural gas?
Yeah. FERC's figures, this refers back to the Sunday campaign that we just talked about, for proposed new capacity indicate a decrease of about 20% per year during the period of August 2017 to August 2019. Extrapolating that data suggests that proposed new additions could drop to the point that they no longer exceed retirements by 2025, and the market pressure could make this happen. And in fact, the period of 2017 to 2018, the reduction was 18%, but in 2018 to 2019, it was 23%. And it's pretty clear that what's happening is the cost of renewables, the cost of batteries have gone down to the point where natural gas is no longer going to be competitive. And
coal, we know, is way already not competitive.
Yeah.
But for natural gas has been real cheap.
Yep, but natural gas plants, as we've seen in California, when the city of Los Angeles signed that agreement for 400 megawatts of solar power at 2 cents per kilowatt hour with backup by battery for
2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. And with battery backup, you're still at below 5 cents, or was it 4 cents? But you can't, these.
You can't be, how can you match those prices?
Not with natural gas.
Yeah.
Not with natural gas.
One of the things happening with natural gas, at least with fracked natural gas, it's not living up to its projections.
Yeah, which is why, as I said earlier, and we'll talk about this next week, Chesapeake Resources is in trouble.
Uh-huh.
They're saying we might go bankrupt. If the market glut continues, we won't be able to stay afloat.
Well, takeaway from the article, not only is our nuclear capacity declining, but the overall capacity of fossil fuels is not increasing. And meanwhile, we can expect to see a huge increase in the capacities of solar and wind,
Yeah.
which we've talked about on this show many times.
Yeah.
In August of 2019, the amount of capacity proposed for natural gas generating plants for the period to August 2022 was a reduction of 37%. Okay, so that's gas.
Yeah. Falling by over a third.
Yeah.
And falling by over a third, is that in a market, is that a recession, or is it a depression, or is it a flat out catastrophe?
I think it's all of the above. Well, we got an interesting picture coming
We do
up
indeed.
here on
And
this
this
chilly
is-
morning.
Yeah, this is a chilly morning in Brattleboro right now, but that was a warm morning in New York City.
That was in October.
Yeah, it was only a few days ago. And this is from CNN.
And this is what it says. Last month was the warmest October on record globally. Here's what it means for climate change. And that picture, by the way, is New York City.
Yeah,
It's probably Coney Island.
I would guess. Yeah. I was going to say it's got to be
He looks
someplace.
like he's been out in the sun all day.
He looks like he's been out in the sun altogether too long. That would have to be one of the beaches on Long Island facing south.
Oh, yeah.
It would have to be. I think those are the only places like that. I've never been to beaches in Staten Island, but
There's some nice beaches in Staten Island,
Yeah.
but all
They wouldn't-
along the south coast of eastern
New York.
Long Island,
Yeah,
there's beaches.
yeah,
It's almost nothing but beaches.
yeah.
Beaches in little beach towns like Howard Beach.
Why is it called Howard Beach? Isn't it a coincidence that a beach town would be called Howard Beach? Okay, what do you got for a title?
Last month, well, didn't I say this one?
Did you?
Well, I think I did. Last month was the warmest October on record globally. Here's what it means for climate change.
The Copernicus Climate Change Service, which analyzes, this by the way is a service of the European Union, analyzes temperature data from around the planet, said October 2019 was 0.69 degrees Celsius, which is 1.24 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer globally than the average of all Octobers in the 30-year span of 1981 to 2010.
Well, the heat was spread out across the globe.
Yeah.
Not just localized.
Yeah.
2016 through 2018 have been the 3 warmest calendar years on record.
Yes. And one of the things that I find a little bit disturbing about this is that if you look at the climate, at the warming, we were already into a warming trend by 1981, which
But
means
nobody was talking about it.
yeah. What it means though is that the average that they're talking about is an above average, if you will.
And above average, I'll have to remember that phrase.
It's an above average average.
That's a good one.
If you were to be able to measure, well, people did measure temperatures, but just not globally, for 100 years to 1981, and what they are saying is that we are 1.25 degrees Fahrenheit above the average for 81 to 2010. But, okay, the average for 1981 to 2010 was clearly above the average for 1880 to 1980. That's what the above average means.
I'm glad you explained it. I'm not sure I still understand it.
Okay, I will not go any further with that.
Well, this is the last article we have coming up.
That's
so,
right. And we have this from CNN.
From CNN, 11,000 scientists warn of untold suffering caused by climate change.
More than 11,000
Did I say 1,100? It's 11,000.
11,000 researchers from around the world issued a grim warning of untold suffering that will be caused by climate change if humanity doesn't change its ways. The group said that as scientists, the group said that as scientists, they have a moral obligation to tell it like it is.
There's a nice 1-minute video here.
Yeah.
CNN usually has pretty good websites.
Yeah,
on this stuff.
although once in a while they give me videos that have nothing whatever to do with the story.
Sometimes they
and
do, yeah.
they clog up my limited bandwidth on my computer, and it is 4:30 in the morning and I'm trying to get the news.
Well, this 1 minute video has some before and after climate data, and it's interesting. Pictures
Yeah.
of towns. How many scientists does it, oh, you're supposed to, no. I'll say this. How many scientists does it take to convince the world to take climate change seriously? Okay? There's
Yeah.
no more wiggle room for policymakers.
Yes, and unfortunately they're trying to wiggle.
Posterity will remember them badly for dismissing climate change as a serious threat to our civilization.
You know we've had a thing from the Audubon Society saying that something like 275 species of birds in North America.
We've talked about that, yeah.
Are threatened with extinction. There's lots of other animals that are threatened.
Yeah.
Plants are threatened with extinction. But you know what's going to be one of the early victims of extinctions from climate change?
What?
The Republican Party.
Could happen.
Because when people see that they're being had and that this is a bunch of con artists who are trying, I'm sorry, I'm a Republican, I've told you. Well, I was a Republican until I stopped, which happened because of climate change. The other people will stop being Republicans because they're going to look at this and they're going to say, you know, my children are going to have to live with the results of this kind of nonsense.
Well, the article lists 6 key issues
Yeah.
that have to be addressed if humanity wants to prevent the most catastrophic scenarios.
Yes.
They're all common sense. I got them here and we got time. I'll read them.
Do it.
1, replacing fossil fuels. Duh.
Let me think about that.
2, cutting the emissions of climate pollutants. 3, and this is an interesting one, eating less meat.
Yes.
Okay, because
We've been
cows
talking about that.
generate a lot of methane.
I'm still a doubter on this to some extent. You know.
Well, it's their belches that.
I know that, and if you mix certain kinds of seaweed with their food, they're belching.
They don't belch as bad.
They cut the belches by about 90%. But cows are not the only meat we've got, and they are wildly ahead of almost everybody else. You know, every other meat eater.
Well, the next one is restoring and protecting ecosystems.
Yes.
5 is a biggie. Building a carbon-free economy. This
Yes.
is a biggie.
Absolutely.
And 6, stabilizing population growth by investing into family planning services and girls' education. Who even thought of that one?
Oh, I think a lot of people.
Well, it's accurate.
A lot of people have talked about that, and you know, that's the idea of eliminating our use of carbon-based fuels. As far as I'm concerned, that's easy.
Yeah.
You know,
We're on the path to that.
Yep, the carbon-based economy, carbon-free economy, that's easy.
That's being.
Dealing with population growth is going to have to
That's gonna be a
require
little
a
bit harder.
mind that's a little bit more powerful than mine is.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't see how to do that, but it may be that somebody will be able to. You know, we can do this in the miserable way, or we can do it in a way that's exciting and fun almost. And the exciting, fun way, unfortunately, is called socialism by people who own stock in fossil fuel companies.
Okay. I'm not going to deny that.
Well, you know,
When did socialism get to be a dirty word anyhow?
well, it started with I think it started with the John Birch Society and the Army McCarthy hearings,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that sort of thing. But if you look at, I asked a friend of mine who was in the John Birch Society, you know, what is it, you know, do you really think that the government should own nothing? And he said, yeah, the government shouldn't own anything at all. And I said, what about the postage system? That's run by the government. And he said, that's socialism. And I said, so Benjamin Franklin was a socialist. And he said, yes, he didn't call himself a socialist, but he was. Well, if Benjamin Franklin was a socialist, then what is wrong with it? Really. And he told me further that practically all of our founding fathers were socialists. And I look at this argument never convinced me. I maybe have been a conservative Republican. I put it in the past tense. I'm not a Republican anymore. But I may have been a conservative Republican, but that argument never convinced me. And there's a couple of others too that never convinced me, and another one was Ayn Rand. Okay, should we say goodbye?
Well, I think so. We've kind of covered everything. So
Let's say have a
I put
perfectly
us all
lovely
up on
week.
television, but we're already up on television.
Yeah. See you next time.
Adios, amigos.